Yeah. Well, this is one of those things where, 15 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever, someone would say, in the future, everyone will be a video editor. And you'd be like, what a stupid thing to say, when it's like, okay, the reality is if you're under 25 years old, how many videos have you edited? Probably heaps.
Heaps. Yeah. This came up in a discussion the other day. There was some new stats that came out that basically vindicated the thing that a lot of people talk about, which is that the general sort of the computer skills between millennials and Gen Z and then younger have sort of atrophied away. And like your average Gen Z person is not as good at computers in the abstract as your average millennial.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that as software has gotten better and more consumer friendly, and things like the file system have been basically obscured while you're on mobile.
Yeah.
Everything is a lot more
not
seamless.
only on mobile, and like Google Drive and on Chromebooks and whatnot, it's all search-based.
Yeah. So like as a result, people just aren't developing the skills you would learn if it was like 1997 and you're trying to get a printer driver to work. Or that sort of generic. So like there was a survey that went out basically saying Gen Z falls victim to internet scams at a higher rate than boomers and like a whole bunch of other computer related things. And I think that's true. It comes up a lot as just a consequence of the nature of modern computer design.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, your average Gen Z person is just so far ahead of the average millennial in terms of editing video.
Totally.
Producing stuff that looks good and is sleek.
As well as just like innate knowledge as to how to produce compelling content, I would say. That like, well, as you say, like the editing techniques and, and the tricks and whatnot.
Like the grammar of editing is completely innate to them. You could point at a bunch of things that cause that. One was like, I think the stories format being native to people, like learning how to like put together like a compelling, because like, a well-done Instagram story is like a movie, right? Like you're thinking about how to frame and stitch that stuff together. And the second is that editing suite tools, like the equivalent of like an iMovie, which is the Mac native video software, being in every social media app, or like most of them. Like basically Instagram, TikTok is the big one. TikTok having like a timeline-based video editing software that you can just like learn to use. Yeah. And TikTok's obviously taking advantage of that. They've released CapCut, which is like their more advanced suite, which basically functions the same way but has a bit more power to it, a bit more feature rich.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is, as you say, the full professional end of the spectrum, the Avids of the world who are editing Hollywood blockbusters, or they're at kind of a high-end ad agency or whatever it is, a production company, the actual market for that is pretty low. Yeah. Like the amount of studios and whatnot who are paying that top tier amount, it often requires hardware to go alongside it, especially in the audio world where you need all the audio inputs and blah, 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 blah. A lot of it runs DSP. Some of the processors run externally on external boxes and this, that, and the other. You require obviously a shit ton of like graphics cards, and basically, the cost is really high. The amount of people doing it is relatively low. I mean, it's a perfect example of this kind of consumer to professional spectrum where at the other end is a free product in TikTok that hundreds of millions of people are using like literally every day for free. When you're looking at like from a value perspective, like we were looking at the numbers earlier with Avid, who is one of these like professional. So
like Avid is the standard for both audio and movie production, like high-end audio movie production. They make Pro Tools, and they also make Avid Media Composer, which is the professional video software that's used basically ubiquitously in Hollywood. Like, yes, people use Final Cut and Adobe Audition and other ones and other levels of the process. But if you're making like the new Avengers movie, you're definitely in Avid Media Composer. They pulled down $300 million in 2020. That is obviously like a solid amount of money.
It's a good business.
That's a great business. $300 million. That's a great business in revenue-wise. They did not make a profit on that. I think that was just, I don't know.
Maybe they had a bunch of investments.
Could have been a COVID thing or whatever as well, in terms of movie production being down.
Who knows? We'll have a look at I'll look at their quarterlies and I'll update it in the Discord.
Yeah. They've got about 1,000 odd employees. Considering the fact that they are the engine of many of like the biggest movies in Hollywood, the biggest albums that are released via Pro Tools, $300 million as a slice of that is not huge, right? Compare that to what TikTok is obviously making.
Yeah, $10 billion in ad revenue, like in 2022.
Yeah. And teaching a whole generation of people about how to edit using their system, which admittedly is kind of based on the way that these older pro suites, the same principles they operate on, but still learning their system. It's an interesting dynamic.